Right, hello everyone, and welcome to our 45th Women in Sectional Title webinar. Yes, you heard me correctly, 45 episodes of sharing valuable knowledge and skills to our women trustees. If you know sound. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Yep, we can hear. Thank you.
All right, everybody can hear. Great. Thank you. So I was saying that it's really wonderful to be able to share knowledge and skills with our vibrant community of owners, trustees, we've got portfolio managers and estate agents. So Women in Sectional Title is a powerful platform to educate and inspire our women. I'm very privileged to be able to work in the space and to continue working in the space, and particularly to have the ear and support of our wonderful sponsors. So thank you so much to Zfin, We Connect You, Sectional Title Solutions, PKF Octagon, and Multiprof. What I'd like to start saying to you now is that we are looking today at a really interesting subject. And the interesting subject deals with building plans, sectional title plans, and zoning. It's really been an interesting journey for me in the sectional title industry to learn about how all these things are put together. It was always a question. Do we need municipal plans or building plans? Does the municipality need to give us consent for certain things? How are exclusive use areas registered? How is common property demarcated or designated on a sectional plan? So today we're lifting the veil from all of that and to just look and go into our complexes to see. Even estate agents, we've always said to estate agents, we need you to be educated in terms of what there is in the scheme. You can't sell something without knowing what it is in the scheme that you're selling. And we always say, keep an index, keep something together of your plans, the sectional title plans, so that you know exactly where you are and what you're selling. So today, one of our sponsors is joining us, Multiprof, and we have Aubrey Snyman. Aubrey is the founder of Multiprof and has extensive experience in town planning. He's also a special friend of mine. Hi, Aubrey.
Hi, Marina. Can you hear me? Is every
Yes,
sound good?
all good.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
All good. Also, we have Inez Ferreira, who's the director, and Jennie, Allison, who we work daily with on an operational basis. Welcome, ladies.
Morning, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. Definitely. I think from Clive, he says he hopes that Aubrey can touch on what defines an extension. I think we're going to talk about all those things now. So, Aubrey, it's over to you. We're going to give you the opportunity to share your screen and to put the presentation together. And if there are any questions, just pop them in the chat and we'll try and deal with them afterwards.
Thank you very much, Verena. Thank you for the opportunity. It is always nice to share what we are passionate about. This is a part of sectional title that have long been neglected, and today we are suffering the results of these part of complexes not being adhered to. So it's a very short period to discuss everything, but we're just going to touch on the basics. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, I can.
Can you see it? Okay. So let's start at the very beginning, and I think that's where a few things go wrong in understanding how sectional title fit into the general scheme of things. So let's look at the pre-sectional title property. Each and every sectional title property complex, duet, whatever, before it became sectional title, was just a normal stand in a township. Now, the township was established, and while the township was established, municipality and private sector got together and a plan was put together that we call a zoning plan. And basically, that would indicate the use of a property, so what type of activity, and then very important, how much of that activity. And this formed the foundation for any future use of this property, and it then, of course, also reflect on a sectional title complex or any sectional title development that is erected on a zoned property. So the starting point is always to go back to the zoning, and we recommend that trustees and managing agents start off by getting a copy of the zoning certificate that is available at the local authority, and it is a document that is not covered by copy or whatever it is, so anybody can get a copy of a zoning certificate. So if you go to your local authority, you give the earth number, they will supply you with a document that would include something like this. It can be a few pages or a one-pager basically, and it will give you a zoning. Now, residential 2 is a typical zoning for residential complexes. You'll get a variety of different zonings, and most of them can eventually become sectional title, but let's focus on this. And part of the zoning for residential 2 will say, basically, you can erect dwelling units there, and there will be an annexure to it, 10:1, and it will, like on the right-hand side of the screen, it will give you things like coverage, height, floor area, and typically also the amount of dwelling units allowed on a specific earth, and it will be given as units per hectare. So not to be confused that if it says 20 units per hectare or 30 units per hectare, you can erect 30 units on your little piece of land. You must do the conversion to hectares. If you go to council, you will get a zoning certificate. This is a typical example of the first page of it for a Pretoria zoning certificate. And it will, as we said, it will cover important issues, of which one that is relevant in complexes is coverage. Now, coverage means the percentage area of a property, including any servitudes covered by roofed areas, of all building as seen vertically from above, but does not include the structural building that have no roof. So the consequences of this is that when we design a complex, we need to keep in mind that we cannot have more roofed areas than what is stipulated in the zoning certificate, and that would say be 30% or even 20%, in some cases more. In reality, the developer will normally try to use as much of this as possible, and this creates problems later when we start adding roofs after the original approval. The next important one is floor area ratio. Now, this is more applicable in multi-story buildings, because this will include all the floors, the bulk of all structures, excluding certain things like walkways. And then a very practical thing that plays out in the sectional title industry as far as floor area ratio is concerned is that patios, for instance, in a building that is not covered or not enclosed, would be excluded in most cases. Now, we had cases, and especially on the coast, where people want to enclose these balconies. They do not realize that the bulk might already have been taken up by what the developer developed. So by enclosing patios, you are exceeding your floor area ratio. And therefore, those plans cannot be approved ever, except if you do a new rezoning and costly exercise, and council may or may not support that type of application. Then there is aspects, of course, that we spoke about a lot in general, and that's parking requirements. Parking requirements are linked to the property, and we cannot decide, oh, you know, we really don't need this parking, or we're going to convert the parking that is legally supplied into other uses. That is on the property even before there was a sectional title involved in it. Okay, then another aspect that is linked to the property is servitudes, and often in complexes, people are not aware of it, and then structures are erected on them, and it just becomes a big problem. There you'll see normally on your aerial photos, on the GIS sites from councils, you can see certain of the municipal service especially. And if you look at this picture closely, just go back for us, you will notice where this sewage pipe of the municipality is allocated. There's various additions done over that servitude. And of course, that cannot be approved in most cases. And therefore, we can already see from one example that it is a big issue in complexes. Then restrictive title conditions that I think you know more about than we do. The title conditions come with the property, and in this case, it would say no structures of iron or wood can be erected. Now, what is a Wendy constructed of? What is a carport constructed of? It creates huge problems trying to get plans approved for these additions that was done without following the procedures. And it can be hugely expensive, as you will know, to remove these restrictive conditions and take time. Okay, then we would like to have a quick look at the 3 different types of plans in sectional title. And from experience, a lot of confusion in the industry is because of interlinking and misunderstanding the function of each. Now, a site development plan, as we would have seen from the zoning certificate, is a plan that is required by the zoning. It would say in the zoning, the start of everything is a site development plan. It means a plan which shows the siting, the elevations, the exterior finishes, the amount of parking, the open spaces, and entrances, exits, whatever. So that forms the basis without the details of any development. And not to be confused with a site plan. With building plans, you'll find the site plan just indicating the position of it for practical purposes. But this is a legal document, and every time a change is made in a complex, for instance, firstly, this site development plan must be updated. It is not in all cases relevant. In some of the municipalities, they are not strict on it, or they don't ask for it.
Depends on if you're adding to coverage and so on like that, like shade netting and that they wouldn't ask you to because it doesn't affect the cover.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Did you hear that? Perhaps you can just repeat that.
So in some cases, it depends on what it is that you are amending on site. So if it is like shade netting is not seen as a roofed structure. So it's not part of your coverage. Council won't need you to update the site development plan.
Thank you very much, Inez. Okay, so that's the site development plan. The next plan is the building plan, and that is also Inez's speciality. So she can just take us quickly through some of the basics of building plans according to the national building regulations.
Yes, so the law states that each owner needs to have a copy of their approved building plan for all structures on site, including a linked certificate of occupancy. So there's two phases. There's your building plan whereby you approve all structures on the property. People have this misconception that certain structures are seen as temporary. These are normally law pods or Wendy's. They definitely have to be on a building plan. If you are on site, if you are on the property, every structure that you can see, even a water fountain, needs to be on your building plan. There's no such thing as a temporary structure. There is a thing as minor building works, but it does not exempt you from submitting a building plan. So this is all for your safety. Due to the fact that you can put anything on a building plan and have anything approved as long as it is according to the national building regulations, council requires that you get a linked certificate of occupancy. Now, this is where the building inspector comes out. He or she compares the structures on the approved building plan to structures on site. If they correlate, they will find that in order, and then they will also check your services on site. So they will check that your plumbing is in order, your electricity, your glazing. There's a whole list. They can even ask for a land surveyor to come out to make sure that the positioning of the structures have been put on the building plan correctly, because sometimes architects will try and jippo, the positioning of the building plans to get away from building lines for servitude. So a certificate of occupancy is linked to a building plan always. That will never lapse. When it comes to your building plan, you have 1 year. Within that year, you have to have a building inspector out on site, or your building plan will lapse. You can reinstate it after that year. You're just going to have to pay a fee, and you'll get an extension of time, and that will only be for a year after that.
Thank you. That is a quick summary of it. No, that's fine.
I'm still going to carry on.
No, unfortunately, there's lots to cover, and then we can come back. I'm sure there will be questions on it. So everything we discussed now is applicable to any full title stand as well. So it has nothing to do with sectional title. Even if a developer will build a complex and he decide to rent out the units, this will be the totality of what he's exposed to. But then we want to look at the post-sectional title. So that is, once we have this, once the complex is constructed, now the sectional title is added to it. And the easiest way to think about it is that the sectional title only have to do with ownership. So all the other stuff is there. That's the foundation of the property. So sectional title only is an indication of who owns what. And therefore, we mustn't try to confuse that with conditions in the zoning certificate and all of those things, because that can be very confusing. And therefore, you need building plans, even though it's sectional title. You need to conform to the requirements of the zoning certificate, if it's sectional title or not. So let's just go, as we all know, I think we're all fairly familiar with the sectional title plans. So the sectional title plans consist of a few different pages. The first one will be basically a block plan indicating the position of the units. No dimensions really, except you'll see there's some dimensions to the boundary line. Sometimes the servitude will be on there. The page that is for the property practitioners, most important is the specific section. So basically what each owner owns is the inside of that section, and then an undivided share in the common property. And then very importantly, and that's I think something that was neglected for long, is the participation quota that is derived from the floor area that is registered. And of course, if this is not kept up to date, the square meterage of each unit, then the PQs is not correct, and the levies that is charged according to the PQs are not correct. And that the implication of that is that some owners are subsidizing other owners because they are not paying their correct PQ amount levy. Okay. I think this is the more familiar stuff. What is common property? Basically everything that is outside of the inside of the section. And the common property, as we know, belongs to all the members of the BCs in an undivided share. The implications of that is, of course, that you cannot lay claim on any of the common property for your own purposes. And that is what happens if you erect a structure on common property and use it for your own purpose. That is the consequences of that is that you cannot, if you use your garage for storage or for other uses, you cannot say, okay, well, I'm going to park my car that is supposed to be in the garage in front of the garage, because the area that you're going to park it does not belong to you. It belongs to everybody in an undivided share, and you cannot prevent another person from having the use of enjoyment of that common property. Exclusive use areas is common property, but it is allocated either on the sectional title plans or then mostly now in the rules, only if it is registered. We sit with a lot of misconceptions where enclosed garden areas, because it is walled, people assume that it is exclusive use for the owner, but from experience, very, very few complexes have registered exclusive use areas, and therefore it is it's just common property. Registering exclusive use areas in rules is one of the easier ways to achieve that. This is an example of a typical exclusive use area plan that we are involved in quite a bit. It becomes part of the rules, and in the rules it will refer to this plan, and if a complex wants to see exclusive use areas is registered, important to note that each exclusive use area is registered for a specific use. It would say for a garden or for a courtyard or for solar if it's on the roof. So you can't have a garden exclusive use area and then decide you're going to park your car there. It is not for parking. It is a specific use for it. Then the question is always, how do we know what is the status of our complex? The older a complex is, in practice, we'll see that over 40 or 50 years, a lot of permissions was given to people to make changes, and very often or very seldom all the procedures was followed. So we get into lots of the complexes, and what we then do is what we call a complex audit of the buildings. So we will use all of these plans that we discussed now. We'll start off by getting a copy of the zoning certificate. So we will know what is the allowed coverage. We will know what is the allowed floor area ratio. Then we will try to locate building plans from the municipality or from the owners. Sometimes owners that have lived for a while in a complex, or even was one of the first owners, might have copies of plans that even council don't have. As Inez said, the owner is responsible to have a copy of his unit's plans, and the body corporate is responsible to have a copy of the site development plan, because that is for all the owners. That covers the whole property. The sad part is, if this can't be located, all of this eventually need to be redrawn, resubmitted to council, and it needs to comply with all the rules and regulations.
As a new project.
Yeah, so council will see it as a new project. The proof that plans exist lies with the owners and not with council. So technically, if no plans can be allocated, they view the property as vacant, and we start from scratch. And that can be a very expensive exercise, and therefore, again, we recommend that managing agents and trustees make sure that copies of the plans, if they can, is kept safe. But again, it's the owner's responsibility. And from the property practitioner point of view, it's important to ensure that approved building plan and the certificate of occupancy move from seller to buyer every time the property change hands. If we've done that for the last 40 years, we would have had no problems, but there was very little of that happened in the past, and that caused a lot of the problems that we have now. So what we'll then do, if we have all of these information, we will physically go out to the complex and survey each of the structures there, and we will then give the body corporate a report on each individual unit. As you see, there's just an indication of a specific one. We do two types. The one is when it's only outside, it only covers the coverage and the structures. Or we do the outside and the inside, and that would show you the inside changes, walls that was removed, areas that's used for different purposes, garages that was converted into living rooms or bedrooms. And as you can see here, very often there is lots and lots of units that is not compliant, up to 60–70% in some complexes is not compliant and need to be rectified at some point. So that is just a rough or a broad indication of all the different things that we find that is wrong or need to be changed, and that will give a starting point for a complex to start to rectify it. We can't start to make any suggestions on how to fix things if we don't know what the status quo is. And a body corporate is also in a difficult position to look at any request for new additions if they don't know what they have. There might be a request for another carport or something or addition, but you have already exceeded your bulk and or your coverage, and therefore even giving permission is just contributing to the problem. We just can have a look at the consequences of the changes that is made after the original plan have been approved. Something like a carport, as we said, it first needs to go onto the site development plan, then you need building plans, and then of course you must deal with the ownership of who owns it now. The fact that you have built it, if it's built on common property, of course you can't claim the sole use of it. If you, yes, then you must see if you're going to register exclusive use or how you're going to deal with it. Adding an additional bedroom, for instance, of course, that needs to include the PQ that needs to be changed, the land surveyor getting involved, Lapas and Wendy's, the same. Who owns it? Who insures it eventually? And those type of structures have huge implications on fire security and your insurance. Typically, it's often in the insurance policies. It would say that you are insured. They are insuring for brick and tiles. And of course, all of these other things are not bricks and tiles. So make sure that it is covered somehow in your insurance policy. Balconies and courtyards, same problem with coverage and floor air ratio sometimes. Then we mentioned it, the conversion of garages into other spaces. Those garages form part of the minimum parking requirements for the property, and therefore very seldom is it possible or practical to get those ones legalized. In practice, you can also imagine that if you give permission to one owner to do it, you must be able to give all other owners the same privilege. It might not be a big visual problem or practical problem if one owner parks his car outside, but try to give 40 or 50 owners the permission and you suddenly have 100 cars that needs to be accommodated. So that is just in short, I think the practical things that we can deal with. I think we have a few minutes left. If there's any of these issues or anything else that we did not cover, you are welcome to ask the question or to we just lost some touch over here on one of our screens, or you can yeah, I don't know if there's any questions.
Thank you, Aubrey. Thank you. We really appreciate that. And I think it just, you know, when you categorize things in your mind, it makes it so much easier to envisage the complex as a whole and what happens. There are a couple of questions. We'll try to go through them. I don't mind pushing a little bit over time. We started 5 minutes late today. So I think the one thing that I wanted to ask, say, for example, you've got an extension that people come to the trustees and say, we want to extend. The council gives the requisite permission for this extension because you've got the floor area ratio is fine, the coverage is fine. If the body corporate says no, so you don't get your special resolution, but the council says yes, obviously then the body corporate can't proceed.
Okay, yes, Inez can answer you.
Yes, so before submitting that plan to council, you need to get the body corporate's approval.
First,
it's not the other way around. So you first need to get their approval and then submit to council, and then council will take it through the process for approval.
good. Thank you, Inez. I think I wanted to clarify that for people because I've often had that question. Then you've got, Daniel had asked, what is the recourse if the developer just goes ahead and builds without local authority, approval? And we see this all over Johannesburg. At the moment, I'm seeing rooms being built all over in a backyard. There are 100 rooms that are being built, and one, realizes when one starts looking into the question of whether there's approval that there isn't. So are councils being tough enough on this?
Yes, so you can make contact with your council. You send through a complaint form. Within 48 hours, they will be on site and they will issue the owner a contravention notice. So they will give them 21 days to prove that they have the rights for what they're doing on site, or prove that they have appointed a professional in order to legalize everything that's on site. So when you appoint the professional, council will still take you to court, and the professional will need to provide proof that they have indeed submitted to council for approval.
That is the legal situation. I just want to add, the reality of it is that a lot of these things is there's corruption involved in it. Building inspectors don't do what they're supposed to do. They won't necessarily follow up on these type of things. Some bribes is around, so it makes it more difficult to enforce these type of things. A few of these where the council is involved that we know about, it takes ages and it's go from one department of another, and often or sometimes it just disappears along the way. So as much as it's one of the last resorts that we have, we must not think that it's just going to be reported and it is sorted. It is a continuous effort to get council to act on their obligations, but don't give up. You
just need to keep on following up. You will get through. I mean, I've even got some to go to court, so it does. It does.
But it's not a quick. It's not.
You've got to be persevering.
Correct.
The one question was, how can you rezone a clubhouse for commercial use?
Well, firstly, one will have to have a look, and we didn't even look at the regional spatial development frameworks that council have, to see if the activity that you want to rezone to will be supported by council. So it will depend on what's in the vicinity, what is the reason for the rezoning, how is it going to affect things like the traffic. If you want to make it a business, will it be for outside people as well, or will it only be for people inside? There's a lot of factors that we need to look at from a town planning point of view to see if it would be worthwhile attempting to get council to support a rezoning like that.
Parking being one of them.
Yes, yeah, of course, parking, all of those things will play a big role. So we need to invest each and every situation individually. There's no one answer fits all.
I was quite interested to hear about the water fountains. That I wasn't aware that you need building plans for water fountains.
Yes, well, neither was I. And so
Elaborate on water fountains on exclusive use areas.
yeah, so when the building inspector comes out, basically, like I said, all structures that are on the building plan need to correlate to what's on site. So if there is a water fountain there and it's connected to electricity and it needs to be on your building plan.
Again, on that, that may vary from council to council. This is typically Swane area. There is not consistency, and it makes it also more difficult. One building inspector might insist on it, the next one will ignore it. But the problem with water features is that it is a safety concern. Somebody can drown in it, and it's a gray area. How deep water do you need to drown in? You know, so what we are talking about is experiences that we have, but we know that it's not consistent all over, and that makes the gray areas make it more difficult to advise people. Sometimes we say, well, take a chance, you know, if you only have to submit for this fountain, it's going to just cost you so much.
No.
And then the building inspector will either comment on it or not comment on it.
Yeah, no, so if it's only the water fountain that you had erected, it's not a full building plan that you would submit to council. It would be a site plan. So you would basically just show the positioning of the buildings on the site plan. It's a one-pager. And show them
and submit it.
And submit it, and they would basically just stamp it, and the building inspector would be happy. So that's going back to minor building works, where I say, you know, you're still not exempt from submitting. It's just not an entire building plan process.
Well, I think this is going to definitely wake up a couple of people, because there are all sorts of things that I'm seeing in sectional title complexes at the moment, which look highly illegal, unfortunately. Ronnie asks, can the current elected trustees lease common property to an owner? Aubrey, do you want me to answer that?
I think you must answer that. Yeah, I think you best.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem. That's more a legal question. So yes, the trustees can actually delineate areas to lease, as long as the lease is for less than 10 years. And they often do actually take common property and lease it out. Of course, it's much easier to demarcate exclusive use parking bays through the rules, because you need your layout sketch plan, and then it's in your rules, so it's easier. But I always talk about exclusive use areas being your first prize. Exclusive use areas are the ones which are attached to your title deed, and that's important. I'm seeing a lot of those actually at the moment in my practice, where exclusive use areas are properly registered, but then you need a unanimous resolution and agreement from everybody to put exclusive use areas like that in place. So Aubrey, I want to just find out if people are listening and are worried about their complexes. You guys offer the service where you go out and do compliance. Just tell us a little bit more about that before we finish. And I've taken pictures of the questions, and I'm going to ask Aubrey's team to maybe answer them, and then we'll send them off to everybody. But yeah, in the meantime, just tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Okay. As I said, firstly, we will always have a meeting with the trustees, just explaining some of the stuff that we discussed today, because we do not expect trustees to know this, understand this, and see how this fit into each other. If they realize that their complex is not compliant and we haven't seen many compliant complexes, as you will know. We will give them a quote to do the investigation as we discussed, getting all the documentation, putting it together, and then we'll supply them with a report that will cover all the aspects of compliance. And then after that, we can assist them in following a process, eventually with the goal of being 100% compliant, having a certificate of occupancy for each unit, and also often they need to think about architectural guidelines to know that future changes is not going to jeopardize this compliance that they have. And hopefully at some stage, this will also form part of the systems that is used by the managing agents, whereby you can keep track of things like additions and alterations and what was approved, and keep all of these things on record, so that we don't have to go through this process every time, every few years. At this stage, that's not done, and that's a problem.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to the three of you. I think that's been insightful. South Africans have had it easy up to now. I think we've gotten away with murder when it comes to living in sectional title complexes. I know overseas, for example, if you're changing something in your garden in Sydney, New South Wales, if you're planting a tree or doing anything else on your property, you need to notify your local authority. I do think that we are going that route. Regulation is the order of the day. And whilst urban densification is on the rise, I think that our local authorities will have to play a bigger role. I know that our Community Scheme Ombuds Service is looking at new legislation regarding extensions to force the trustees to get a surveyor general in, and if the owner doesn't pay for it, the body corporate can hire the land surveyor to survey that extension and put it on a separate account for that owner. So we're moving towards regulation. Get compliant. If your complex isn't compliant, you know who to call. Thank you again to our sponsors for this time and space. That's ZFIN, Sectional Title Solutions, We Connect You, PKF Octagon, and of course, Multiprof. Aubrey, Inez, Jennie, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much. And we look forward to next month's webinar with all of you. So keep safe until then. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.